Hello, my name is Francis Fox. And no, I don't have my house coat on, though this blouse certainly looks like that, doesn't it? Here on camera. I'm a government trained remote viewer. I have been trained in all psychic skills. I have several superpowers. One is that called the power of induction, which was declared not by me, but by the military when I was a child. When you're in my presence, even if it's on the internet, if it's on the phone, in person, your psychic abilities augment. I My remote viewing is at a level of superpowers. I've come to recognize that, and it's important. Um, and I choose to use it to further the things that are important to me, which has to do with making trying to ensure there's less grief and anguish on the planet, that less people be in so much emotional pain. I also have a power that I acquired recently, and I've already said the story several times, so I won't repeat it. When I witnessed somebody being able to give healings to several hundred people at a time, and I could actually see that his spirit body, which is your astral body, duplicated itself 500 times and stood beside each person he said he was going to give a healing to. And he did. And at that time, I said, I want to do that. And it turns out that I'm doing that today. Another day, I will let you know how you might be able to participate in one of those healings. I'm very happy with myself to do that because I would like at this time in my life not to overwork. And this is a shout out to Elon Musk and also to Trump, but more to Elon Musk. When you have a racehorse, you take care of it. You take care of the actual horse. It's not just the training. It's not that it's good. It's not that it's bloodline. You also have to take care of the horse so that it can keep going into races and winning. You have to take care of it. And in my, this is a shout out to Elon, whom I'm sure thinks that within 2 weeks he'll be able to get the problems of the planet under control and then do his own thing. But they're going to continue, Elon. We're in end times. It's messy. So you're going to have to figure out, in my opinion, how to take care of yourself in the middle of all of this that you have chosen to help in. So one of the ways I have done that for myself, I'm not comparing myself to him, but I'm just as an example. If I want to be able to heal that many people, then I needed to be able to do multiple healings at one time, and I'm doing that. It works out very nicely. Thank you. Also, in terms of finances, um, I did not want to have to be only taking care of people that are very wealthy and that can afford what it is that I charge. So I achieved it through my intention. It was my intention. I witnessed something, and it was my intention to be able to do that myself. Okay. So we discussed my wardrobe. We discussed my message to Elon Musk. Let's go ahead and go on with the map. Yesterday was a heavy duty day because of the information I shared with you having to do with me personally, but also the map yesterday looked very rattled. Um, this is the map from yesterday of the United States, and see the way it's rattled? The line is not firm. That protective Star of David talisman, it's considered, the Star of David is considered a talisman, a protection, was rattled. But today, thank God, it's much better. It's much more stable. But you have all of this red at the bottom, and that would correspond to the lowest energy center of humans, but also of countries, da 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 da. And it has to do with security and prosperity. So there's a lot of rage having to do with security and prosperity. But look who that rage is from: fury from those in power behind the scenes. We're talking about the deep state here. I have no idea. There could be several groups that have been in power. Certainly, somebody was in power in Congress for all this shenanigans to go on. And the releasing of all that god awful information about how incredibly widespread is the level of thievery. Grand larceny is nothing compared to what they've been doing, but there is going to be rage at the people that get found out, or the people that won't will no longer be getting incomes, whatever. So this is a rage in the place that we don't want it, but there's more stability. And the words up here is that flexibility is necessary. And I believe that I'm seeing, I looked over very quickly the news that it appears to me that Trump is being flexible, that he's not just making a statement and then saying, that's it, we're standing on this and we're not moving. I think that he is being flexible, and I think it's necessary. This has never happened before. This is an awful lot of things that we're all having to confront at one time, in addition to what's going on in our personal lives. And a lot has to be going on in our personal lives because all of us are in the end of end times, which is where the systems that held power before, this is the time in which they collapse and we all get affected. I want to just briefly for a minute, I want to show you something which I have explained before, but I need to explain it again because we have a lot of new people. In other words, if not, we don't have just 6 viewers anymore, we have like 7. My followers, when they look at my numbers on YouTube and they see how the numbers go up and then the numbers go down, they remove numbers, they get furious and they keep saying, look at what they're doing. And I go, yeah, they've been doing that forever. So now we have 7 followers on my English chats. I'm joking, but not really. So power on planet Earth is in the other dimensions, and it has a structure which practically nobody knows about. That structure has been hierarchical in nature. A few people at the top, or one person, the Pope, the president, the father of the family, the CEO, and then more people further underneath, and more people underneath, and more people at the bottom. Everybody, all the levels support the person at the top. It doesn't matter what the person at the top does or did. It does not matter, because this was the structure of power in the other dimensions. Everybody was thrown into this triangle if they were going to be part of society, and they had their place in it. And in their place, they had to support the people at the top. My example, and I know this probably will irritate people, is the Catholic Church. It has forever been known that the Catholic Church has entirely too many people that abuse kids. And yet people continue to turn their kids over to them and go to them and revere them. But that's because the structure of power was hierarchical. It didn't matter what the guy at the top, which in this case would have been the guys at the top of the Catholic Church, did. Everybody was going to support them. Then all of a sudden, years ago, people started taking them to court. Well, what changed? What changed was the structure of power. Now, this may sound like something like, okay, Francis, get on to more interesting things. No, 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 no. If you're going to set up a business, you need to know this. If you're running a country, you need to know this. So until now, it's been triangular in shape: the president, God, the father of the family, the teacher in the classroom, up here, and everybody at the bottom supporting, regardless of circumstances, the top. That started to collapse in the 90s. Collapse of hierarchy. In businesses, the big companies started to notice it, and they called it reducing, flattening hierarchy, and they would take out entire sections of their companies that they felt that they didn't need anymore. Okay, so this structure in the 90s was weakening. At that time, a lot of people in alternatives started to open centers, healing centers, and they would get an acupuncturist and an aromatherapist, somebody who did Reiki, and somebody who did chiropractor, and they'd open up a center and they would all chip in and it would all be equal. They were trying to set up this in the 90s, but this was still operational. This is a structure of power in the other dimensions. The other dimensions is where all the power is. It's where reality is created, where reality is destroyed. So they were setting up community but prematurely. And all those centers collapsed. They didn't work. The concept was great. Didn't work because it had no support in the other dimensions. Now, this has collapsed. And everything that's happening having to do with the sex trafficking and what's happening with whether people in Congress took advantage of their power to insider trading and all of that stuff was totally tolerated, supported by hierarchical structure of power in the other dimension. This has collapsed. So now everybody's left exposed. Now the people at the bottom don't really care about supporting the guy at the top. Whereas before they adored who was at the top, they respected him, the big boss. No, none of that. Before, I don't know how this is going to play out, what I'm going to say next, but I'm going to say it anyway. You had the United States with the ability to bomb the whole planet 20 times over. Why did they keep building more bombs and more bombers? And then, okay, and things kind of under control. And then some guy came with a little bomb strapped to his back, and the whole game was over. What? It doesn't matter what your arsenal of weapons is. If you get one guy that believes enough, he can take you down. That's because this was collapsing and has collapsed. And the circular community structure of power is what's important today. Okay. Okay, Francis, enough. That's enough of civics. Finish. No. If you have a company today, you got to have this. There has to be a sense of community. Things have to make sense. In hierarchy, they didn't need to make sense. It was all based on obedience. You obeyed the guy at the top. That's it. There's no question. It doesn't matter. You don't question it. If you're not going to obey, then you just have to leave. That was your only option. Here, things have to make sense to the people that are working, or they just walk, like the young people today. Before, they would have been the lower part of this. They would come in and they would learn the ropes and they would figure out if they wanted to reach higher. Today, they come in and they're like, we don't like this. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't need to make any sense. You've got a job. I'm paying you. Yeah, it does need to make sense for them because we're over here. So, what has this got to do with the United States? Well, we've been the number one country. I don't actually know how many years. I'm not going to even estimate. And with very much hierarchy. We were the number one. That's it. Hey, hey. So when Trump says, let's make America great again, that's okay. Let's make America number one again, that's not okay because that's not supported today. I don't hear him saying, let's make us number one again. Let's make us great again. No problem. I'm not talking about no problem with me. I'm talking no problem in that it would be working within this new paradigm, which is part of the age of Aquarius. Okay? You know, all those hippies and all that free love, that can't work in a hierarchy. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. It could have worked here. It got truncated. Who knows if all that's going to come back? Probably a lot of people alive today would not want that whole age of Aquarius, that play hair. They would not want that. Okay, no problem. Create your reality, no issue. But this is what's supported. So if you're going to set up a company, it needs to be circular in nature in terms of power. You cannot have people feeling powerless. They can't just be following instructions. They can't. It feels to me like what Trump is doing with all these people in the intelligence, the new people that he put in, it feels very community. And when they're working, it feels very community. But we'll see. We will see because this is a new situation on planet Earth. Totally new situation on planet Earth. Within the family, that structure is totally destroyed. You started to get kids born that were indigo kids, and they were like obviously super bright. Oh my God, what do I do with a kid that knows everything? And of course, the school system was not equipped. So you have a lot of neurotic kids whose needs were never met because they're a new type of human being. How do you meet their needs in terms of the market economy? And I told you that this chat would be turning into something very much having to do with business. I'm not going to go forever in terms of political intrigue. um, I like business, and I like knowing advanced things, and I like participating. um, so w- in terms of working with this, people have to be helped with the statistically, when they do statistics on how what makes people happy, they find, and it's been apparently a lot of studies where they find that people are happiest when they're working and doing something for other people. So when it comes to business and other things, you could call it your mission. Like, this is my mission, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm doing it, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, which makes me happy, not because it's what I'm supposed to be doing, but because I'm doing something that makes me happy. And it's because this is what I wanted to do. This is what I determined to do without really being very clear about the details. So to have a staff that is feeling like what they're doing is like a mission, but not a mission having to do with what they're earning, but a mission having to do with something that actually betters humanity. Going back again to Elon Musk, he should be the poster boy for this because he earned a ton of money because he was aligned with his mission, which was to help people together with his desire to get to Mars. But if you take away the get to Mars, he still is a winner in this new paradigm because of his desire to help people. Now, I know there's a ton of people that are very angry at him. That's another energetic law that we need to deal with. Um, the reaction to him. I'm not sure that it's too many people or that everybody that's angry at him is getting publicity. And anytime they're angry at him and they lash out at Tesla, they're getting publicity. I'm not sure that it's that huge a volume of people, but whatever. So we have a mantra which has to do with aligning yourself, which we'll do that now in the chat when we do the mantra, aligning yourself with your miraculously prosperous mission. When I work with companies and with sales groups, and I haven't done that for a little bit, and it always gets a little bit questionable when I say it, but what I do, if I dare, is I will tell the staff that I'm working with, listen, I don't know where it is that you're at with this job, what your future plans are, and I don't need to know. But this particular mantra, let's say that you're in this job, but this is not your ultimate job. This mantra will help you to feel totally satisfied with what you're doing today, even though you might be aware it's not your ultimate job, but it will also start to open up energetically your connection with your mission. And it's actually the mantra that is the one that makes the biggest difference the quickest in everyone. Of all the mantras that I've been working with for 30 years, this is the one that works the best. Not the best, it's the one that gives you the quickest relief. The words of the mantra are, please God, help me with my intention to create a miraculously prosperous mission. And that has to do with work, because the example of Elon Musk is the one that we have to show. He has earned a ton of money, and he did not come from money, and nobody handed him any money, and nobody's giving him any money to do the stuff that he's doing. He is producing money because of what it is that he is doing, but he loves what he's doing. And the dolphin said, I've told you the story, but for those who haven't heard it, I would go to this aquarium in the 90s and talk to the dolphins and tape record what they would answer. And then I have the book that's up on Amazon that's called The Gods Speak. And a friend of mine insisted on coming with me one time, which was fine. He was fun to be with. And he was always very cranky about baseline stuff. He was an artist. And he said to me, ask the dolphins what they think about work. So I asked the dolphins, what do you think about work? And he said, the dolphins said, we don't think people should work. So my friend very sarcastically said, well, why don't you ask them how I'm supposed to pay my rent? So, okay. I said, this guy who insisted on joining me on this trip wants to know how he's going to pay his rent. And they said, you're not supposed to work for a living. You're supposed to do what you love. And when you do that, you're going to earn more than enough money. And when I repeated it to him, he went, well, I don't know about that. But I can tell you, in terms of him, he spent more time, wasted more time worrying about money and trying to figure out how to make money because he couldn't make it off of his art. He was good. He was very good with his art. But he was not vitalizing his intention to earn a living as an artist. He was scrambling to pay his rent, his car, the money he gave his mother, his food. That's what he was vitalizing, making sure that he had enough. He wasn't vitalizing his intention to earn enough money through his art. His worrisome nature as a Virgo had him basically uh, vitalizing something that was very negative. So when we set up companies now, and I'm wondering how this can apply to the government, being it that the big shakeups right now are in the government and they're certainly hitting the companies. How do you apply that to the government? How do you change your process of screening people when they come in? Um, how do you get that commitment that has not existed in the United States for years? I think the latest poll that I saw, I didn't bother looking after that, was like 2015, where I think 85% of employees in the United States are not committed to their jobs. Now, we created greatness in this country economically. It's not going to get recreated under these conditions. It can't. It's not going to happen. How do you change that? You can change that. Commitment, you have to like what you're doing. You have to at least respect it. And that's never been a requirement in business in this country. This is the country where corporations would say, you leave your emotions at the door. Don't come in here with your problems. The emotional body is your spirit body. When they say in Star Wars, may the spirit be with you, they're talking about your astral body, your emotional body. Corporations say, leave that at home. Okay. But all these young people, they'll leave their emotions at home. They won't have a problem with that, but they won't commit to their jobs. And this 2015 survey, and there was not of young kids, it was people working in companies. 85% of the population is not committed. So there has to be a turnaround there. And there can be a turnaround, but there has to be a turnaround at the level of management in terms of, and I know that they already go through, how do we get these young people to work? Mantras are an incredible way of purifying and changing people's minds. And the other day, this darn book on sex that the editor was like, I'm not sure you should put this out. You know, you're not being very sensitive about all these sexual issues. I'm not supposed to be sensitive. I'm supposed to give accurate information. Some of it I'm sharing from the dolphins doesn't mean I necessarily live by it, but I'm sharing it. I think people should hear it. But the whole being so delicate um, is really the whole woke thing, which just got us into plenty of trouble. So this has to be dealt with face on. How do you get people in this country to commit to their jobs if they don't really like what they're doing? And a lot of jobs are very repetitive. The automobile industry, a lot of jobs are repetitive. You're in a restaurant and you're the one that comes to the tables and picks up the dirty dishes. That's very repetitive. But that mantra, believe it or not, works. And it doesn't really matter who you're working with. And again, when I've given it to people, I've said, I don't know where you're at with this job that you have now, but it doesn't really matter. You want ultimately to be aligned with something that really makes your heart sing, which means it's going to be your mission, even though you don't really know it. And when you do the mantra, you end up being okay with where you are at now. There's something about those words, please God, help me with my intention to create a miraculously prosperous mission. There's something about those words that is soothing, almost like telling people, it's okay. Just do this that you're doing now. It's going to happen behind the scenes. You're going to get there. That giving them that hope. And then it's okay. You continue to work. I did that mantra when I had to leave because I was taking my company into bankruptcy. I did that mantra about a year, but that was years ago. Excuse me. Today, mantras work really quick. They didn't years ago. You had to plow, continue, whatever. But once I started the mantra and I accepted, this is not what I want. The job that I was doing, which is my company, this is not what I want. But I did the mantra, it was okay. I knew I couldn't leave that day or the next week or the next month. I had to wait. I actually had to wait 11 months. At 11 months, I was escorted out because they said that I was not really contributing and I wasn't. I didn't want to be there. But the minute I started the mantra, it was like taking a pill that soothes you. It's okay. You're not going to be here forever. It's okay. And then you do the job you're getting paid for. You do the job that you're supposed to be doing. So there's going to have to be a mindset change having to do with what human beings need today and what is business and prosperity. This country is built on that. This country is not built on spirituality, but it's built on that. But you can incorporate spirituality into that. You can take care of the spiritual needs of the people that work in your companies so that they don't feel empty, so that they don't come in as robots, so that they can continue with pride in their work, knowing that maybe they're not going to be there forever because, they are not going to be there forever because nobody is forever any place anymore. The time of when you stayed at a company and after 40 years they retired you and gave you a gold watch at this dinner, that doesn't happen anymore. People are too creative. They need change. And that's okay. You need to have them when you have those people working, you have to have them feeling satisfied. Because if not, you're not going to be putting out a product or you're not going to be having a country that's going to sustain what it used to produce and sustain before. You have to fill the spiritual needs and they can be filled. The interesting thing about the editor who really thinks I'm crazy to put out this book. I mean, I'm so insensitive to all these sexual issues. No, I'm not insensitive, just putting things the way they are and stuff that the dolphins gave me, things that I've observed. It's not being insensitive. It's not, I was never allowed to manipulate information. And what my editor was suggesting is what's acceptable, which to manipulate the information I have so that people don't get upset at me. Well, you know what? That's not my job. I had to be tough so that people, whatever their reaction is, it doesn't really matter. I'm not supposed to manipulate information. Well, thank God it put me in a good position because I have advanced information because I didn't throw it out when I got it, when I realized people are not going to like this, the book I'm going to put out. People are not going to like this, but I'm going to put it out. It's information. And you throw it out, you take it in, you learn something from it, or you will remember in 5 years and go, oh yeah, whatever. So the manipulation of information has really set us back. They're trying to be nice to people and giving everybody a break and making, when people aren't created equal, making sure that they are treated as if they were equal. That's all that stuff is a lie. And it's going to come back to haunt you, which of course it did. But anyway, going back to the collapse of hierarchy, and now the Pope is in his process of death. Supposedly, he's going to be the last Pope. The whole church is going to fall. That church cannot exist without hierarchy. It can't exist without hierarchy. The Catholic Church cannot exist without hierarchy. It even had its own army in the Crusades. How can a church have an army? Come on, what? Okay, okay, okay. The United States, which has been very hierarchical with the companies, corporations, I believe, were even granted rights. At one point, even animals have been granted rights, but that makes more sense to me than corporations being granted rights as if they were an individual. Well, but this has collapsed. So start getting used to this and figuring out how to take your company or your group to where you will actually have support in the other dimensions. Remember, the ability to bomb the planet 50 times over, that all got destroyed when one guy with a bomb on his back could blow up whatever. And then it was like, wait a second, that's not fair. That's not the way we do war. Guess what, guys? We're in a paradigm shift. Forget about the way we did wars before. I think maybe we're going to have to kind of forget a little bit about the way we did business before and get this system set up to where there's more satisfaction for the worker in what it is that they're doing. And that can be done. That's not outside the realm of the possible at all. I remember when I did my first stress management training, I have to set up that company again. My company for stress management. And I went into a very large company. It's actually one of the oldest companies in the world, in the history, in terms of company, like a regular company. And I put together a stress management program because the higher ups in the company were having a lot of problems and there was a lot of frustration. There were people getting very angry, and they kept giving them bonuses, and they kept asking me, what do we do now? And I said, this is not a money issue. You keep throwing bonuses at them. Their problem is not money. They earn a ton of money to start out with. That's not their problem. That's the problem with the new paradigm. This was about money. This is not about money. Not about money. So I said, you need stress management. These people are stressed. So anyway, for several weeks, I'd come back for my weekly meeting and covering everything, whatever. And I said, did you find a company? No, I didn't. And so finally one week he said, you do it. I said, I do what? I just know what I do. I'm a strategist, whatever. You do it. And I went, okay. So I ended up doing the research to get the proper language so that I would sound more business in what I was doing. Basically ended up being the stuff that I always teach, which is the mantras and the mudras and the visualization. So I gave my first course. It ended up being the highest rated program that I had ever had in HR. That was sweet. I got promptly kicked out because the CEO of the company changed and he asked what I did. How do you explain that? And I believe he was ex-military. That's interesting. He was in the news. This was many years ago. Whatever. So I did the program and I spent a couple of hours explaining the energy bodies and explaining why the mantras work. And later on, the only critique was that they didn't really want me to give all those explanations. They just wanted to do the exercises and they really liked them. And actually, right after that first session, a group of them got caught in an elevator that stopped working for a couple of hours, and they remembered the mantra and they did it, and they said that's the thing that made it manageable. So I gave them stress management with my updated modern version of mantras and mudras and the visualization. So let me tell you about the visualization because that was really good. It was the first time I had done a visualization in a group like that. It was in a ballroom in a hotel. And there were a lot of people, and people close and people at a distance. So I told them to do the visualization. It was really neat because all of a sudden the room got full of gold. We're talking private bankers, we're talking money people, They used to say that their pinstripes had pinstripes, very rigid. They loved the mantras. They loved them, and they were very quadriculado, square, and they loved it. This is good news for this that we're going into. We just need to get it out to many, many people at a time. The great news is that it's very inexpensive. And one worker can give the mantra to another worker that works at another company, and they can start it, and they have an immediate effect, um, multidimensionally, but also you can feel it on the physical dimension. So here we go back to why am I talking about this so much? Because the map today, there's more stability, but there's a lot of anger in terms of what's going on with money. And that reminded me about the whole issue of the fall of hierarchy, especially with the issue of the Pope passing, which really represents a very structured and severe hierarchy that basically dominated science. Do you know why RFK has such a tough job getting our health on track? Science started 600 years ago, what we call science in this part of the world, because there's 5,000 years of observations and conclusions about the influence of the planets on people. That's something that should be integrated into this um, new paradigm in order to be able to have companies that are successful and that have employees that commit for the time that they're with the companies, that they commit. It's not that they have to commit to 40 years, it's while they're there. And if the company happens to have a product that the person really likes and feels that it's something they really want to give the world, they can be there longer. But anyway, um, ah, something that I was saying. So there has to be immediately work done to figure out all the angles having to do with the new paradigm, circular in nature, having to do with the structure of power. Um, the language will be different if a CEO is explaining to you what's going on. He'll be saying maybe the same things I'm saying, but with a different language. And that's what I had to do the stress management for that company. The initial time that I did it, I had to look up their language. That's when I found out about the whole thing with human capital. When I read that, I went, human capital. What are they talking about? We're talking about employees. Human capital. Oh my God. Okay. Human capital. And how apparently in England they spend a lot more money they invest a lot more money in their human capital. So here I'm talking about investing in human capital in terms of filling a need that they have today that they didn't have 50 years ago. It's a different world, a really different world. I'm glad to be part of the transition. Um, it's exciting, it's stimulating, it's got to get it figured out, and I enjoy that. I enjoy the challenge, but it's going to be a huge challenge for the company, for the country, to get everybody on board. For that, you would need some kind of a national program, and you'd need a lot of people that are creative in terms of getting information out to a lot of people. You need to get that. Oh, that hierarchy so severe with the Catholic Church to where everybody was like in handcuffs, having to do with creativity if it fell outside that paradigm. When science as we know it was set up, which was 600 years ago, the Catholic Church said to those people that were starting to do scientific research, uh, they said, you have to limit yourself to the physical dimension. Everything that's non physical is spiritual, and that's the domain of the church. Well, unfortunately, when you get sick first in the other dimensions, which are spiritual dimensions. When you make poor decisions, it's because you're sick in the other spiritual dimensions. And but the Catholic Church said they were not allowed to do any research or to work on anything that was not physical. So then you get a medical system which does not make any sense, modern medicine, that everything is the physical body. Well, the physical body is a manifestation of processes of several energy bodies. You get sick in the energy bodies before, and then you manifest that sickness in the physical. Well, it makes sense. Why don't you work on it deeper in there and stop your physical body from being sick? It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot quicker. Nope. Catholic Church says no. So we have 600 years of research. And yes, they have done some stuff with the other dimensions, but it was truncated, totally truncated when it started out. And medicine has been truncated, and poor RFK now has to figure out how, from every different angle, how to be able to get a medical system that makes more sense. The definition of science, by the way, in the dictionary is observe and draw conclusions. It never included that you needed an Ivy League degree, or that you needed funding from the government, or that you needed 6 studies that verified what you said. That's not the definition of science. There is thousands of years of science done on astrology, thousands of years, and that's something that should be integrated into the medicine today, because coincidentally, and then let's go ahead into the mantra. Coincidentally, the father of modern medicine said, you can't call yourself a good physician unless you're also a good astrologer. Did you know that? I don't think you did. Do medical doctors know that? No. And that's part of the scariness of this society for people like me today. How can you choose this guy, Hippocrates, to be the father of modern medicine? He says you can't be a good doctor unless you're an astrologer, and you completely forget that? Ah, the Catholic Church says you can't get into that. So, but why would he say that? Because depending on your astrological sign and all that stuff in your planets, you have weaknesses according to when you were born. Like I'm a Cancer, the weakness is digestion. Pisces, they can have the weakness in their feet. Other signs have their weakness in different places. And generally, those are the things that are going to take you down. And when you get Cancer, and I look at original injury, I think, I'm not sure that it's been 100%, but it's been close to 100% of the times. The causal of the Cancer was related to the astrological sign of the person. There was a relationship between the energies of that astrological sign of that person and the root cause of why they got Cancer. So we are in interesting times. And RFK said something today that is music to my ears, but will be another reason for economic instability in this country if we're not careful. And he talked very lightly about the effect of Wi-Fi. I wrote a book about that years ago. I don't even bother talking about it. And when I found out, because I thought this is so weird that people are not dealing with it, this was years ago. And then I found out that the problem it has to do with the tech industry. And if the tech industry starts to get regulated, or people realize what the tech industry is doing to us, the whole economy will collapse. That was the explanation. I did not like it, but after a while I went, I think they're right. But that's what made Atlantis go under. So we're going to have to tackle it. We can do this because intention creates reality. Intention creates reality. Intention creates reality, and intention creates reality. There are no exceptions. There are no exceptions. We can do this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the mantra for prosperous mission. Okay, I'm going to look a second because I used to have that video here. You know what? I think I put it on for you guys the other day, so we're going to skip it. No, we're going to do this video. This is the one on redemption. Okay, let's go ahead and do 5 minutes of the um, miraculously prosperous mission. Give me a second. I want you to check now from 1 to 10 how you feel. And then afterwards, we're going to go back and see how much you improved. Oh. Okay, here's the mantra, and let's just do 5 minutes, okay? But you just are self-analyzing how you feel from 1 to 10, 1 god awful, 10 great, and then afterwards you're going to do it also, and I'll put up the dress now for you to also assess that. I don't know, where do we want to go? Oh, this one. This is the fun one. Okay. How are you doing from 1 to 10? So, you can even give this mantra to your children that are going to go out to look for work but are not really finding anything that is exciting. And as I tell when I train people, this may not be your ideal job. You may not even know what you really want to do, but this is what you need to do now. You need to pay your rent, and this is what you have now, and this is what you need to do now. So, with this mantra, it shifts the energy to where you can do what you have to do now, even though it's not really what you want, because it gives you this feeling that you're on your way towards what it is that's going to be fulfilling. So even for the teenagers, and you don't have to do it. There's a lot of mantras like the one for depression and the anger. You have to do a lot. This one you don't have to do that much. It's really very, very effective. So thank you for joining me, and we will see you again next week. Thank you.